everyone, welcome back. My name is Lynn Wilson and welcome back to Hope for Today, where we study God's Word in a very simplistic way, very practical way for everyday life, where we are. Nothing fancy, no frills, just what does God's Word have to tell us for today. I like to leave you with a little nugget that you can just kind of grab onto. And I find, I've said this before, that God just is teaching me more and more and more about being discerning and lend a listening ear and hearing his whispers on the things that I need to be talking about. These are things that he's showing me, and I always know because of your comments and your emails back to me that if I only resonate with one person, I've done my job. If one person got something out of this, I've done my job. But it's been so interesting that as I've picked a topic and I went, I don't know about that. What do you think, Lord? And then I do a podcast on it and somebody goes, wow, that's exactly what I needed. So here we go. So today we're going to be talking about the perspective on disabilities and what does the Bible say about it. Now, last week we talked about prayer, the perspective on prayer, and it was in a little bit of a unique way. So disabilities is very real in my own personal life, and I'll explain that. But I think it's given me a whole new perspective on what disabilities are. And it's challenged me in a way that I never thought I would be challenged. And I didn't even realize growing up, I wouldn't say it was taught to me or instilled in me, but just by life circumstances. I think I shied away. I felt awkward. And we'll get into that. I'll explain that more in a minute. So is there a biblical perspective on disabilities? What does the Bible say about disabilities? That word disabilities is a big deal right now. You have the parking thing, put in your window. We have one of those to get disability parking. And certain places offer discounts if you have a disability. And, if you have kids in school, then they can go for special classes because they have a disability. What does the Bible say about it? In all the ways that we as a people have tried to not discriminate, we are still discriminating in a lot of ways against people who have a disability. First of all, let's start with the basics. What does the Bible say about people? Okay, no extra tags or titles or labels attached. What does the Bible say about people? Well, there's 4 things that I could think of right off the top of my head. Number 1, first of all, if you are the one with a disability, if you were living with somebody with a disability, or you know of someone with a disability, I hope this really, really helps do something for you. Help you have a better perspective on where God has you or them or all of it. So the basics are, number 1, we were created in his image. It doesn't say if you were this or you're that. It doesn't say if you come from this country or that country. It doesn't say if you were born this year or this year. It doesn't say if you were this age or that age. It doesn't say if you have a disability or not a disability. We were created in his image. We were knitted together by him in our mother's womb. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. And he knows the plans he has for us. Okay, my job's done. In any of those verses, if you go back and read them, is there anything about disabilities listed? Not a one. A more modern day saying, if you want to say it, that we say, when you go to a woman's devotional or you go to, certain people speaking, they'll say, God doesn't make junk. Absolutely, 100%. Those 4 points just equates to that quick modern day phrase. Another question I've heard over and over and over, again, I have disabilities in my own personal life on a regular, everyday basis, is I've had people say, is a person's disability due to sin? It's a very real question. I'm sure some people maybe mean that in a negative way, but I think that is a good question. That is a curiosity question, like, why would God have allowed this to happen in their life? Has God put this in their life as a payment for sin? We're going to be in John chapter 9, verses 1 through 4. It says, as he passed by, he saw a man blind from birth. And his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he would be born blind? Very valid question. Jesus answered, it was neither that this man sinned nor his parents, but it was so that the works of God might be displayed. Wow. You think about that. Here the Lord is telling them. I mean, they're disciples. They're curious like you and me, like, Lord, what? He was born like this. She was born like that. Is there sin in their life? Whether they were born with it or had it happen after the fact, after a situation. It says no, because it says neither that man sinned nor his parents, but it was the works of God. It was the work of God that God might be displayed in him. God would get the ultimate glory in him. How, as a people, do we view disabilities? Now, I mentioned growing up. I wouldn't say it was instilled or taught to me. Maybe it was, in certain ways or aspects. But, when people look funny, they talk funny, they walk funny, they act funny, they say things differently than us. Maybe they yell things out in we would say, in an inappropriate manner. There are disabilities that just can't control certain things in their life. Maybe they smell funny. Maybe they, just their appearance is just, and I get that. I get that. Sometimes it can be uncomfortable. It could be scary when you're a child. So I think as an adult, as we teach our children to teach, they're created in his image. They were knitted in their mother's womb. He has a plan for that person. They're fearfully and wonderfully made. We can view them very differently. Your perspective on disabilities can change. But I think on an average, people would say, I think they're weird. Or, oh, I have such pity for them. Oh, what a shame that person has ABC. You think there's sin in their life? You think that's why God allowed that? I don't go near people like that. Oh, I try and stay away. Yeah, no. Or maybe if we just ignore them, they'll go away. Have you ever been in, listen, honest, no judgment on this podcast. I don't ever want you to feel like you're being judged. What I want you to know is that we're opening God's Word, to study God's Word, to grow as a person, to be a better person, and be more like Christ. Here Christ explained to the disciples, it wasn't sin. It was so that God can be glorified in this. And I think from a human standpoint, if I can be real with you, we do think they look weird sometimes, or we pity them, or we have shame, or we think it's sin, or we don't want to go near, or we ignore, because we're frightened. What are we frightened of? We're frightened of the unknown. We're frightened of something different. And I don't mean to sound like, I get it. I'm a human being. There are things that are different make us uncomfortable. I think we need to recognize sometimes when we have those weird feelings or those weird thoughts and go, Lord, I'm not comfortable trying to minister to this person, but you've put them in my life. How do I do this? There's nothing wrong with that, because the Lord can grow you up in that area and just give you the confidence that you need to work alongside that person. When I say the word disability, what comes to your mind? There are people that have their arm in a sling because they have a broken arm. You can see that they have a broken arm. There are other people that when you look at them, they look perfectly normal, as you would say, but they struggle with other aspects in their life that cause them to have a disability. I've had to go through this because I've had to view disabilities different in my own personal life. Did I think I was prejudiced toward disabilities? I wouldn't say I was prejudiced, but I was fearful. I was uncomfortable. I felt awkward. I just didn't know. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to say the wrong thing. I was afraid of saying, "Can I help you?" and them being offended that I was trying to help them. How should we view disabilities according to the Bible? Bible talks about blind, deaf, People that had leprosy, they were disabled, they were disfigured. Maybe you see people with a limp. There's so many things, the list can go on and on. The Bible doesn't use the word disability, but the Bible refers to what we would classify as a disability. How should we be as a Christian? How should we be looking at a situation with somebody with a disability? Well, we're going to go to 1 John 2, chapter 17, where it says, if anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need, but has no pity on them, not the kind of pity I was talking about, no heart for them, let's say, how can the love of God be in that person? If anyone has things, possessions, resources, time, money, and sees a brother or sister in need, but has no heart for them, I'm paraphrasing this, how can they have the love of God in them? I wouldn't say I have a disability per se, classified. Like if you were to open a book of 101 disabilities, you wouldn't find it in that. But I would tell you, I am not a person that ever fit in well. I never fit in with the group. I was never in a clique. I just never fit in. I was just never that way. I still to this day never fit in. I never have a group of friends that I could say I truly fit in with. I blend in occasionally in seasons of life. I blend in and out, but I've never blended in. And I have been and still am a introvert / ambivert. And if you don't know what an ambivert is, you can Google that. But I truly understand what it is to feel shy and awkward in a new situation, and I can't, the words just don't come. I guess I do have a disability. Now that I think about it, I am dyslexic. So that I struggle with that. I struggle with numbers and reading sometimes, and things are reversed, and especially when you're in a called upon moment, and that I hated in Sunday school where can you read the chapter, John chapter 3 verse 16, and I know that verse, I know John 3:16 by heart, but being put in a pressure situation, I can't read the words and I fumble, and then the kids would laugh at me. And even now in a women's Bible study, I would not participate because I am dyslexic, and then you raising that and you're heightening that pressure on me to perform and to read, and I can't do that. And people say, oh, don't worry about it. We don't judge. Yeah, well, you've been in places where they do. I live with autism and epilepsy every day, all day in my life, between my husband and my youngest son. We all have also 4 other diagnoses in that mix that are part of it. So that's 6 disabilities, if you were to count, plus if you want to add my dyslexia and my paranoia and my fear of trying new things and my being an introvert and ambivert and all the rest in that, which makes me a quirky person, you might as well say 7. But then again, 7 is the perfect number. So think of that. But if you add all that, we live with this every day. I can tell you what it's like to go to an event, and we went to a very well-known, I won't tell you where it is because I don't want to put bad light on that place, a very well-known museum of a sorts place, my husband and I, a couple of years ago on a bus trip. And we got there, and they had scooters, and because it was a lot of walking and all that, we needed to get a scooter for my husband to navigate. Now, if you want to make like a person with a disability stand out, they had the biggest, clunkiest, ugliest scooters available. But that's what you had. And this place we went to was massive, and there was floor after floor after floor. And my husband is, if you know my husband, he's 6 foot. He's a big boy. He's, picture like a lumberjack look. He's not a little smaller stature man. So you got this big dude sitting on a big cart, navigating around this place, and my husband would try and we're getting onto the ramp. Now, mind you, we mind our manners. We let people go ahead of us so we don't slow you down. But we would go on the ramp to go to the next floor, and people would shoot in front of us. Almost to the point where my husband was afraid he was going to hit them with the cart. Like, Could you be mindful? Somebody has a disability. It doesn't matter whether you can see. He doesn't have an arm in a sling, but he has epilepsy. So obviously, if he's on a scooter, there's a purpose for that. Be kind. Let them go ahead of you, or don't cut in front of them. The entire time we were at this place, the one thing we both said is we have never experienced so many people ignoring somebody with a disability. It was shameful. Now, are all these people Christians? I don't think so. I know they're probably not. But a good chunk of them, I'd say most people that are going to this place probably are Christian. That's one thing. Now, of course, my view is by default because I live with this every day. But my son, at one point, was told, to me, I was told, he can't, when he was real little, he can't be in Sunday school class because he disrupts the class and it's too hard for the teacher. Okay, well, there's also 2 other kids in that class that are similar to my son or have disabilities that would, level about the same level. Yeah, we can't have him in class. He can't come to Sunday school anymore. Okay, I'm a parent. I want to get out. I want to go to church, and my kid can't go to Sunday school, so that means I can't go to church, because what am I going to do with my kid? There's no way he can sit with me in the adult class. So I said, okay, you know what? I'll let my husband go to the adult class. I'll go and I'll be the teacher. So I went. I said, listen, if you can just find me, I don't even need a classroom, just a corner somewhere in the church, and I'll put a couple folding chairs, and I'll teach my son and any other kid that's here with a disability or whatever you want to classify it as. I'll teach them. This way they're not missing out on Sunday school. Nope, can't do it, no room. Okay. Discrimination? I don't know. Looking at people weird and they don't fit in? I don't know. I'll leave that with you. But that left a very bad taste in my mouth for a person that was raised in church, that we no longer have space for somebody that's different. Didn't God say, little children, come unto me? Have the faith of a child? He loves these children. They need to be taught the same Bible stories, the same gospel as any other kid. Now, on a personal note, like I said, I live with this every day. We know we're talked about. We know we're whispered about. We know we're not invited to. We know we're not asked to. We know we're ignored, and we know that we're looked differently. My husband was part of a men's Bible study at church, and let me just say it's not our current church. It is not. So if you know where we're going currently, that is not the church. But they went to go on a camping trip. All the guys from the Bible study. Sounds great. Well, they didn't invite my husband. And it was one of those things that wasn't announced from the pulpit, and it wasn't announced at the Bible study. It was word of mouth got around. And my husband went up to one of the guys, who's one of the leaders, and said, hey, I hear you got a camping trip, and I'd love to go. And he said, yeah, we can't be responsible for you. And now, mind you, yes, Graham has epilepsy, but could we have, it wasn't too far away. Maybe I could have taken him for the day, and I would have sat in the car in the parking lot and had been there. Or maybe he could have gone for 2 hours for just part of the day, or never even considered to be part of that. Shame on us as believers when the Lord talks about the man wasn't born with blindness because it was sin. It was so the Lord could be glorified. What is your perspective on a disability? Okay, a couple of quick notes and we're going to end this podcast. I am very passionate about this, and I truly feel that it is not discussed enough in church and in amongst us as believers. There are people out there that have disabilities, whether it's mental, emotional, or physical, and they need to be viewed as they were created in the image of God. They were knitted together. They're fearfully and wonderfully made, and God has a purpose for them. I have told my kids, as I raised my 2 boys, one with a disability, one without, and they would see their dad and, oh, is he having another seizure? He was created in the image of God. He was fearfully and wonderfully made. He was knitted together, and God has a purpose for him to return the level of respect back to their father that they should have. My oldest son got it. I've heard him preach, and he'll talk about his dad in such a way that it's powerful. And the love and the devotion and the respect. I guess that would be probably the key word, is the respect that he has for his dad, who has a disability, who rose above it, is powerful to me and encouraging to me. Our youngest, now that he's gotten older, when he was younger, he struggled with it, but now that he's gotten older, he truly gets it. Now, with that being said, my youngest son, growing up with a disability, I listen, I don't want to hear, well, I have a disability, I can't do that. So if you're watching this and you have a disability, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I can't serve because I have a disability. Yes, you can. You were fearfully and wonderfully made. You were knitted together. God has a plan for you. You were created in his image, with or without the disability. But I do have some great news at the very end, and I'm going to tell you why you with a disability are more special than I am, at least in my take. So with my youngest son, I can say to him, listen, Dad has a disability. You can look to your earthly father to rise above the surface. How can I do this? I might do it differently, but I can still serve the Lord. I can serve the King of Kings. I could dedicate my life for the Lord. And then my husband, his earthly father, can direct him to his heavenly Father, who can ultimately give him the wisdom and the discernment and the sense of purpose that he needs. To me, a person with a disability is not an ordinary person. But to me, there's somebody who is extraordinary, special, and uniquely created by God to serve him in a very special way with a very special purpose. Today, what is your perspective on disabilities? You know, we started out talking about how people should treat people with a disability based on the Word of God. I gave you a couple of Bible verses. And then we talked about how people, you and I, over the time, maybe viewed a person with a disability, and not so good. Maybe God is challenging your heart right now. Maybe you're the one with a disability, and maybe you're sitting in pity yourself and saying, oh, what a shame, and having a pity party. You better stop right now. Because God, this is what I've told my son, and I've told my husband, and I'm going to end on this, but you can see I'm very passionate about this. God chose you to have that disability because he has a purpose that needs to be fulfilled, and that no one else can do it, and only you can do it. So he's allowed you to be the one with the disability, and that makes you more special than me, as far as I'm concerned. I have a viewer, and I won't say their name, but if they're watching, and I certainly hope they are, that messaged me a couple of weeks ago. I think it was when I was talking about holding on to the right hand of God. And she said she stopped watching my podcast because she got bad news from the doctor. Now, it's not life-threatening, but it is definitely going to change her world. And she started listening to the podcast on the day I talked about holding on to the right hand of God. And she said, boy, did I need that. Oh, I needed that. And she asked me to pray for her. And what she's going through, I cannot imagine the change in her life. But I want to tell you, that change is for a purpose. That change is for a reason. I can't put myself in your shoes, nor can you put yourself in my shoes. But God has a purpose. And we are uniquely and wonderfully and fearfully made for his purpose, in his image, and knitted together for him to be able to use us, or we never would have been created. I've talked about our thumbprints. My thumbprints never will match any other human being on this planet. If God didn't need me, he never would have created me. We, in our own ministry, are unique. We serve people in our own uniquenesses, in our own way. I can reach a people that nobody else can. You can reach a people that no one else can. So know that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are knitted together. God has such a purpose for you. Boy, when you think about that, and you were created in his image, and if he has allowed you to have a disability, take that word right out of your vocabulary and know that He created you so He could shine through you. His light can shine through your life in such a powerful way that He could never have used anybody else but you. So now the next time you hear the word disability, what is your perspective on disabilities?